All right, are you ready, ladies, gentlemen, and alien beings from the ninth dimension? Because I am back! That's right, Law Tekking here, the best Law cosplayer that ever did cosplay. Okay, yeah, I'm sure there's a few people that can maybe do Law a little better than me. Maybe somebody that could actually grow a pretty decent goatee could pull off Law better. Then there's the people that go the extra mile and actually get Law's, sick tattoos on them, and bonus points if you actually have medical knowledge, but I'm at least in the top 10. Okay, top 50. Just give me top 50 and I'll be happy. Alright, so, yeah, I wasn't in the last chapter. Technically, I'm not in this one either, but I do appear in the cover page, so I'm calling that a win. This will be One Piece, chapter 926, titled The Prisoner Mine. And, yeah, we get to, catch up with Luffy and Kidd and see what's going on in their confinement in the factories of Wano. And it's not as action-packed as last week. You gotta keep an eye out for that. Whenever the acts are beginning to wind down, I'm like, okay, Oda, I see what you're doing here. It starts to wind down, and then boom, we get a big exposition chapter after that. So just prepare for that, because that's going to happen a few times before the end of this arc. But for right now, it's more just like a setup chapter. The murmurings of rebellion are afoot in Wano Kuni. The samurai are beginning to get the message of the Kozuki clan. Will they take up arms? Will they remain under the rule of Orochi? How will they find the arms? Since Orochi is, trying his hardest not to start a revolution, so he's making sure that the people are oppressed to the point where not anybody can just find a sword. So, yeah, some interesting developments are certainly afoot. The cover page, like I said, features moi, but nothing really exciting beyond that. It's a request that Law and Chopper are sitting in a library next to a turtle and a crane, just kind of reading books. I like to think they're studying for, like, their medical, exam. I think the MCAT, I think it's what it's called, whatever, something like that. Like, they finally got approached by an official, and they're like, Dr. Chopper, Dr. Law, if that is your real name. It says here you never pass these exams. You are not real doctors. So go to the library and research the hypothalamus until you come back here and you can take a test. These two doctors were polar opposites. One was a blue-nosed reindeer with a tragic backstory. The other, a 20-something-year-old hipster with a tragic backstory. But now, despite all these personality quirks, they're gonna have to work together because they're going back to medical school. Oh, the cuteness will be copious this holiday season. Sawbone Academy, opening December 25th. Okay, so we start off in the flower capital of Wano, where there is basically like a paper boy out and about, or a town crier, like, hear ye, paper here, mass murderer strikes again, 5 gold pieces for 1 paper, Orochi raises newspaper price to 5 gold pieces, because that seems really expensive, maybe like 5 coppers or something like that. But yeah, remember, like, a few chapters back at the very beginning of Wano, when Zoro was about to be executed because they thought he was the serial killer that was out and about. Yeah, we never resolved that. There's still a murderer in the streets, So Zoro obviously wasn't the culprit. They believed he was because he was carrying around Shusui and all that. But yeah, he escaped, and so yeah, there's still someone in the streets of the flower capital just cutting people down, a la Jack the Ripper, kind of. That was sort of like Hakuba's thing, the alternate personality of Cavendish. He also had the sort of Jack the Ripper, unidentified killer out there and about in the city streets. So on top of old Jack, who's out and about, we also have the story of a mysterious ghost that's being sighted in a northern cemetery. And the ghost apparently, comes out and says, I'll haunt you. At this point, the paper's kind of a tabloid, because if the newspaper kid comes up to me and he's like, sir, do you want to read about the new sighting of the ghost? He says he will haunt you. I'd be like, yeah, okay, and is Bat Boy gonna be on the next 3 pages? Actually, the next 6. I'm like, okay, I'll pass. But, that's most likely Brook. And it's cool, because we don't see Brook in this chapter, but you can just picture that, can't you? You can picture, like, Brook's, like, getting set up in the cemetery. He's like, alright, well, Sanji's going to be a cook in the country. Nami is a sexy kunoichi in training, so I guess I gotta do what I have to do here, what my specialty is. He just hides behind a tombstone, and then he just waits for, like, some weary travelers in the middle of the night. You can imagine the fog. And this isn't your ordinary cemetery either. This is an old school Japanese cemetery. This is like the creepy factor has been amplified by like 30. Okay, so an old rickety fence around the cemetery. Those like not even tombstones, just like the posts that we saw for like the Kozuki clan are just, you know, put it in the ground. And imagine like a trader in a cart. His old man is just traveling alongside the road deep into the night, and he's like, ooh, kind of creepy, there's chill in the air. And then all of a sudden Brook walks out in front of the cart like, whoa, I'll hunt you, yo! So, I'm hoping we can see that at some point. But yeah, Brook is out and about doing what... I don't know exactly how that is going to work in gathering people together for your cause. Like, I'll hunt you! Unless you fight against Shogun Orochi! Ooh, take this letter! You know, like, I don't know. Maybe it's more than anything just to cause, like, unrest a little bit, you know, because, you know, chaos in this situation would probably be something that would be welcome, especially from Orochi's end. Like, if you can gather all of the rebellion together, and then all of a sudden everyone in town is screaming about a ghost come to life, then, you know, that might, you know, mess up their communications. And also you got to figure they got to sift through all this information. I'm sure Orochi's men are, you know, watching the people. They know what they know and what's, you know, what the happenings are around town. So they hear stories about like, oh, there's a mass murderer. Oh, there's, you know, a ghost somewhere in the cemetery. That doesn't seem accurate, you know. So it's just like they have to follow up all these leads. It could add to confusion here. But yeah, back to old Jack, the Jack of the Ripper of Wano. So he's actually upgraded a little bit from Jack. Jack just used like knives and stuff during his, you know, Whitechapel little adventure, but no, this dude uses a straight up scythe. So he's not screwing around, you know what I mean? Like, apparently he attacks every night during the witching hours, so like probably around like 3 a.m. in the dead of night. This guy appears and just slices people down. We have no idea, according to the paperboy and the town criers, whether he's friend or foe. I would assume somebody going around slicing people, you know, up would be, you know, foe, but okay. You don't know, because we don't know exactly who he's targeting, because I think, wasn't it stated when they captured Zoro, he was attacking, like, higher-ups in the government, like nobles and stuff? So if that's the case, then he's definitely against Orochi, and we pretty much find out who the murderer is. We've never met him before, but he's another one of those shadowy samurai figures that Kinemon was talking about. So we had Ashura Doji, who is now Shutenmaru, and this dude is probably the Kawamatsu guy, but he has a new name as well. But I want you to imagine this for a second, okay? I don't know where you guys live in the world, if you live in a big city or in a tiny mountain village like me, but I guarantee you, no matter where you live, there's a place in your town or your city that's really creepy, kind of the sketchy place that you don't want to be at 3 o'clock in the morning under any circumstances. Well, imagine yourself in that location at 3 o'clock in the morning under these circumstances. So you're, I don't know, you're in the bad part of town or something, maybe an old abandoned building. In my town, it's an old hospital that's on the outskirts. There's no street lights out there. Not a place you want to be. It's really creepy. Yeah, imagine you're like walking through that area, 3 o'clock in the morning, it's foggy out, then all of a sudden, this shadowy figure emerges from the fog, and you can't really make out his face, but you can see he's carrying a giant scythe that's twice the size of his body, and you're like, "Woo! Are you the Grim Reaper?" Yeah, that'll work. And then he just, like, slices you down. So, yeah, pretty scary crap here. So, we do get a drawing of him, and it's a very crude one, but it states that it's Kamazo the Manslayer. That's what his name is going to be, Kamazo. So, with that being the case, we can see his face, and he has that really long ponytail top knot, kind of going along here with the top knot off to the right side there, next to Ashura Doji in the center. So, yeah, that's most likely Kawamatsu. The other dude that we still don't know about is Denjiro, and all I'm saying about that is Denjiro, he's either the mysterious figure in the jail cell where Luffy and Kidd are currently being held. If that mysterious figure in the jail cell is not Denjiro, though, then I have no idea who it is. Now, you might be seeing, like, oh, with Ashura Doji, of course, he changes his name to Shutenmaru. You gotta be careful about this kind of stuff, because you don't want people to know your prior name. If you're, you know, pledging loyalty to the Kozuki clan, they're gonna round you up. So I'm thinking if it is Denjiro that's in that jail cell, he might be like, you know what, I'm not changing my name, I'm not going into hiding, I'm gonna be upfront about it, I support the Kozuki clan, I know they're gonna come back someday, and maybe that's why he got thrown in jail. So that's why, you know, maybe Kawamatsu was able to escape, Ashura Doji was able to get out there as well, it changed his name around, but yeah, perhaps there was one guy that's like, I'm adamant about this, I believe in Oden, I believe in Lady Toki's prophecy, I'm gonna stick around. So yeah, it might also be the guy that was off to the side that we saw as one of the loyal retainers when the castle was burning down that did not get sent into the future. It's the same guy, Denjiro. We just don't know if he's the same guy that's in the jail cell right now. So we cut to another section of the Flower Capital where we just have a random samurai walking around. We have no idea who this guy is, but we see Usopp walking next to him, kind of just like doing a... And, you know, Usopp, I would imagine he's pretty good at sleight of hand kind of stuff, and he just kind of sneaks the Kozuki clan flyer, the leaflet with the symbol on it with, like, the cranes and the moon, and it's like, this is when we attack Onigashima at the Fire Festival at this exact time. So he just kind of slips it into the samurai's arms, and then the samurai just kind of looks down, and he's just like, oh, this is... And he's turning around, like, who gave me this? And he looks, and he's trying to find somebody in the crowd, but Usopp doesn't stick around to talk to him, he just keeps on walking. We also get scenes from Saachi and Penguin, who are the members of the Heart Pirates, as well as Beppo. Beppo's walking around with one of those you know, straw things, those buckets on his head, the same thing that Law had, so they don't see that he's a mink, because the Wano country is so isolated from the rest of the world. Somebody like, you know, Beppo or like a fishman, like if Jinbei shows up, they're gonna have to be really careful because they have no, you know, prior knowledge of these species. So if you see, you know, Beppo walking around, you're like, oh my god, it's a bear! A bear has come down from the mountains and it's wearing a kimono! It's learning! They're learning to become samurai! We have to put an end to this right now! Although, hey, if you want to cause chaos, that's... Oh, man, Oda might actually do that now. Can you imagine if you just need to cause chaos in a hurry? Like, oh, they're gonna find out who we are! They're gonna find out we're working for the Kozuki clan! Here come Orochi's men! All Beppo has to do is just, whoop! Hey everybody, I'm a bear! Like, ah! And everybody just starts running and there's chaos in town and shit, and then Orochi's men get thrown off the trail and everyone else gets managed to sneak away. I could see that happening, I totally could. You know what? I want to see what Saachi and Penguin are capable of, you know? We see this, Oda does this all the time. He's like, okay, these are just like background characters. They don't do much for hundreds of chapters, but they're always there. He's consistent with it. It's like, here are the Heart Pirates. Now, the Heart Pirates number about 20, but the ones that we've always seen are, of course, Law and Beppo. They're kind of the stars of the crew, but then we also have Saachi and Penguin. They don't really, I mean, I think we see them fight like some, you know, riffraff every now and then, but they're just kind of in the background. There was that slave that was freed. I forgot what his name is. It's like Jean something, and he used to be the captain of his crew, and then he was a slave, and then Law freed him, and then he became, you know, a member of the Heart Pirates. And then there's like a bunch of other members that we don't really know much about. But yeah, I mean, hey, Oda, you could do this. You could be like, oh yeah, by the way, Saachi and Penguin and Beppo, they're all gonna fight a samurai together, and we get to see what they're capable of. They probably don't have devil fruits or anything, but you know, hockey. Beppo knows Electro. We haven't seen him use that yet, really. So yeah, I'd like to see them definitely get a fight. So we just cut around to various scenes of Wano where Oda is very clearly just drawing a bunch of really badass characters. Like we see a samurai with really long hair and a scar over his eye. Another one has a really cool beard and mustache combo. You know, just it's like, oh, I'm gonna show off all these really cool designs, and we're gonna see later if they're gonna fall in. And so everyone's kind of like beginning the murmurings of the Kozuki clan has returned. This is it. The time of rebellion is now. And they're talking about like, oh, are you gonna go? And I was like, damn straight, I'm going. This is our time, you know? Because, you know, if you live under impression for so long, you know, there's some people that might seriously just, you know, convert completely and be like, okay, we used to praise Lord Oden, but after 20 years of iron rule with Orochi and Kaido, who is a dragon, by the way, is like, you know what? Screw Oden, screw the Kozuki clan, they're gone, they're not coming back, I pledge loyalty to Orochi, and then that's it. But there's other people that would, I would say, just, they would go along with it to maintain their freedom for the most part, but, you know, they don't want to get thrown in the prison mines, but they do it begrudgingly. It's just like, you know, and the people of Wano and the culture is very, very loyal to their causes for the most part. So there are people that followed Oden, they're going to follow Oden for the rest of their lives, even though after Oden is dead, you know, these are people that are very steadfastly loyal. So they'll be like, you know what, I will maintain silence and I will go about my business, but I know one day if the call for rebellion ever arises and the Kozuki clan does return, they will have my sword at the ready. You know, something like that. Very honorable kind of shit. So, we cut to an old dude, and the old dude is looking at the flyer, and he's just like, if it was only about 10 years ago, I would go. So that's another problem, too, is, you know, 20 years have passed. That's a long time. So people that were maybe, you know, good to fight back then might not be in the same condition right now, or they might not have been keeping up with their swordsmanship, or so to speak. And so this old dude, who is definitely a retainer of the Kozuki clan, he's like, man, if I was 10 years younger, if I didn't have this bad hip, I'd grab my katana and I'd be right there in the front lines, but I just don't think I can do it this time. I'm just too old. He might still appear, who knows. We don't get names for these characters, by the way. They're just like showcasing, oh, Wano, maybe we might get him at some point. Maybe like, it's kind of like in the Coliseum. Remember back at Dressrosa, we got introduced to all these characters at once. Might be something like that, where all the people of the rebellion gather at the meeting spot, you know, like at 5:30 before the Fire Festival. They all come up, and we get like a whole chapter where it's just like, I am Shinji, and, you know, I am Shunsui. I'm just using Bleach names because, you know, Japanese. It's like, I am Toshiro, you know, and like, I am all these, you know, these worthy samurais. I am Toshiro with the ice blade, you know, that's what they might do, and we'll get to find out what their names are and everything, and see what they can do for the upcoming battle. Devil fruits are prevalent in Wano, they just don't know they're devil fruits. So some of these guys, they might have fruit powers. They just think it's sorcery. So keep an eye out for that. They probably all know hockey, that kind of shit. The old dude also mentions a problem that the rebellion's going to have. He's like, well, it's going to be difficult to try to get your hands on weapons because only samurai under Orochi's rule are allowed to have katanas. And even the weapons in like the dojos and judo and martial arts, all that stuff, that's been forbidden as well. I mean, hey, that's a smart move on Orochi's part. You know, you can't have people going around with weapons, you know, like you could just go in and just anybody could buy a sword because, you know, you got to be careful. You got to, you know, crush rebellions that way. So the old man's kind of like, oh, I wonder how we're going to get our hands on katanas. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Usopp is like, get your katanas, ladies and gentlemen! I have sharp swords, I have dull swords, I have cursed swords, I have holy swords! We got Wazumono, we got Ryu Wazumono, we got Wazumono! Maybe we even have some Saijo Wazumono, I don't know! I got a toad on my head! So yeah, bring it on to Usopp! Usopp Jiro's, I think that's my name, I forget, doesn't really matter. I'm an authentic toad oil salesman, bring it down here! Wano country forever, pick up your katanas! So yeah, he's off to the side, waving his sword around. I'm like, okay, well, if, apparently I guess it's not that hard to get your hands on one because, you know, if Usopp's waving one around in public, but we actually find out about that rule in this chapter, so that's not really a good thing, that Usopp is just waving a katana around because that might actually end up getting him busted. So, but hey, at least he's providing for people, you know, so he's the one where they're gonna procure the illegal arms from, and just like, someone goes up to him and just like slips him like the Kozuki paper, and he's like, hey, I saw you in the crowd earlier. Did you give me this? And he's like, yeah. Do you have a katana? I was like, yeah. Here you go. Thank you for your patronage. You know, so yeah. Anyway, so now we cut over to, it just seems like a noble kind of house, you know, a nice little place in the flower capital, where we have two men sitting around a table going over some trade, you know, papers. You know, like bringing stuff into the port of Wano and all that stuff. And he's like, oh, you're bringing in a lot of weapons. And are you trying to start a war? We have no idea who either of these people are. Don't get names. They're like older people, probably in charge of like, maybe they're like merchants, like the head of the merchants or something in the city, you know, like shipping magnates or something like that. So they're like, oh, we got a lot of weapons coming into the shore here. I'm not really sure what the situation is outside the country. You know, we're pretty isolated. Meanwhile, we cut to the roof or the ceiling, the drop ceiling, where we see Nami, the kunoichi in training, and Shinobu carefully spying on what's going on with the crack in the ceiling. Maybe you wouldn't have so many problems with ninjas if you patched the damn holes in your ceiling. I mean, it's pretty obvious. But anyway, yeah, Shinobu is saying, it's like, Nami, my eyesight has deteriorated in my old age, so you have to be the one to observe them. And so Nami bends over and observes through the spyglass, and she's trying to watch, you know, see what the paper says, because she's trying to get an eye on when the weapons are arriving at the port. I'm assuming that these people are working for Orochi. I don't know. It can go either way. This is the way I'm looking at this, because they need weapons for the rebellion. Obviously, they need to arm their soldiers. Maybe some of them that are samurai, obviously, like Ashura Doji, and if he gets on board, he has all of his mountain bandits, they all have weapons, but you need to get weapons ready for this, right? So, if they're observing people that are for the cause, they maybe are hesitant about approaching them right out, but they got to see when the weapons are getting there. And if they are Orochi's men, then that means Orochi is getting set for something big as well. So, hey, Orochi, we haven't met the dude yet, but I'm assuming he's not an idiot. So I'm going to assume he might actually be aware. And like I said, they're passing out these leaflets all over town. If one of Orochi's men get their hands on that thing, I mean, they might not be able to figure out what the whole thing means, but the fact that it has that Kozuki clan symbol right there, the crescent moon, that's a dead giveaway that this is probably some sort of rebellion, you know? So, yeah, if Orochi's men got a hold of this, gave it back to him, and he's just like, oh, that's not good. All right, order some more weapons. We need to quell this before it gets too intense, you know, something like that. So, anyway, Nami's observing this, and right before she's about to figure out what's on the piece of paper, one of the men notices something in the roof, and they turn and it's like, oh, spy! Damn freaking ninjas! We thought we had exterminated all these guys last week. Anyway, so they take naganatas and they just start, stabbing through their like polearm weapons with like a blade on the end, naganatas. They just start stabbing through the freaking ceiling, and Nami and Shinobu are like, let's get out of here, do. And so they're getting out of there. Shinobu's having a panic attack. Nami tries to grab her mouth. They're like, what are you doing? Shut up. Nami pretends to be a cat. She's like, meow. And is like, oh, it's just a cat. Oh, just a cat that was a ninja that was spying on us. Okay, that makes sense. And then Shinobu yells and like, oh, it's an intruder and a cat. Get them both. So they manage to make a clean getaway. Shinobu activates her ninja kite skills. And so she flutters out a kite and Nami holds onto her and they fly off into the sky. So okay, I guess everything worked out there. And Nami did end up finding out the location of the port as well as the time when the provisions, the weapons will be arriving. So that I guess they got what they needed to, get. Also, Shinobu mentions at this point she has an intense phobia of any sharp object. So yeah, I could see a few problems with that, and Nami even brings that up. I was like, how did you even become a ninja then? Like, if you're afraid of sharp objects, and she's like, how did you even make it this far? And Shinobu's just like, oh, well, I got by on my curvaceous figure and my maturity, darling. So, okay. I mean, hey, she's lasted 20 years, so whatever she's doing, apparently it must work. I don't know. Anyway, so we then cut to the city street below as Nami and Shinobu are flying so elegantly over the city streets. I guess no one bothers to look up. But, yeah, they see a giant line that's kind of snaking back and forth in the center of town. And they're like, oh, what's going on with this line? So we cut to Sanji, who's running a soba stand where he's, like, chopping noodles. And he's, of course, it's Sanji here, so anything he makes is going to be delicious. And I'm assuming Wano has very particular spices and whatnot that he can mix into his soba. And so he has a huge line, and everybody's like, oh, this is the Sangoro. And his soba is absolutely to die for. So he has this huge line. Of course, Sanji's up there cutting the noodles like, come on, ladies, bring it on. You know Sanji's gonna be like, all beautiful women, all women get a half off for this. And then a guy, big sumo wrestler dude comes up. He's like, can I get half off too? And he's like, nah, actually, I think it'd be best if you charge me if I charge you double. I think I have to. So he's like, okay, whatever. It's good soba, thanks. So, yeah. I kind of want to try some of Sanji's soba. I'm really hungry. I'm going to get lunch after this. Anyway, so in the shadows, though, while Sanji is chopping the noodles, we have another shadowy character. A lot of shadowy characters in Wano. A lot of shadows being projected from tall buildings in this country. But anyway, there's a shadowy character who's like, that boy. Does he have any idea who this country belongs to? And so we get to see this dude right after we see Sanji, or Sangoro, preparing the soba. And I think we're led to believe that he's talking about, like, Sanji. But that doesn't really make a lot of sense, because Sanji's really not doing anything to gather attention to anybody. I mean, he's doing stuff, he's gathering attention, but all he's doing is just chopping soba noodles, right? So I foresee two possibilities here. Either possibility number one, this guy is not referring to Sanji, he's referring to Usopp. He's referring to Usopp, going around, waving a katana around in the middle of broad daylight, being like, come on, come all to my toad oil fat, and they're like, oh, is this guy serious? Is this guy serious? He can get this lowly merchant can just walk in and pull out a katana and expect not to be, fought back. So that guy is referring to Usopp. He's one of Orochi's men, and Usopp's going to have to hightail it out of there. Or this is more of a light end of the spectrum here. We're led to believe this shadowy guy is really intimidating, like he's going to mess some people up. But what if it's like another chef? What if it's like another famous chef of Wano that's coming up to Sanji's stall, and he's like, who do you think you are? Do you think you could just walk into this country, my country, and prepare elegant food for the masses? I am the greatest chef in Wano! I will have a cooking off with you! Epic cooking battle, begin! Yeah, you kind of like that scene in Logtown in the anime. Remember that, where Sanji has the cooking battle with Carmen? You know, actually, I really like that scene. I really do. So it was cool. Got to see Sanji doing what he does best. But yeah, we might get some of that. Or he's like a guy from from Orochi's entourage that wants to just wipe out Usopp or whatever. So we'll see that. Okay, so next half of the chapter, we cut over to the prison mine. It's the factory on top of that giant cliff on a different section of the island altogether. And apparently the whole deal here is that this, they do like a reward system for the prisoners. After all, I mean, you got to keep the strong prisoners working longer, and then whenever a weak prisoner, you know, they can't go on any longer, they get rid of them and they bring in some more prisoners, right? So the way this works is that these prisoners are basically just hauling these giant blocks of, honestly, it looks like tofu to me, but I'm assuming it's a, you know, some type of ore or rock that they can use to refine to make weapons or whatever, some resource of Wano. Anyway, they're these giant cubes that they're lugging around. And so if you carry 5 cubes to the ship for transport, you receive a coupon for 1 piece of dongo. And these blocks are huge. They're giant. You know, like, it looks like they would weigh, you know, honestly, looking at this, like, there's a bunch of people carrying them around on their back. They look like at least a few hundred pounds at the minimum, maybe 600-700 pounds. There's other prisoners that are hauling a giant one in a cart, probably over a ton or 2. You know, these things are super heavy. And so there's this old dude that walks up and he's like, can I get my food? And so they only give him like a single dongo, like, boop, just 1 dongo in his bucket. And he's like, but I hauled 5 blocks. And he's like, yeah, 5 blocks get you 1 dongo, old man. If you can't make it last, then I guess you're done. You know, we'll chuck you off the side of the mountain. We'll bring somebody else in. You're an old dude anyway. So, yeah, that's pretty depressing there. Kind of like shoves it in your face again, the oppression under Orochi's rule. And it's, the guy's name is Old Man Hyo, or Grandpa Hyo, okay? So just a brittle old guy. So they attack him and they he's like, oh, if you talk back to a guard, we'll amputate a limb. You know, so at that point, you really can't be lugging anything around. You'll be wishing for that 1 dongo. So I think the whole idea with this place is, you know, how Kaido threw Kidd and Luffy in there. They're like, you know, they're trying to break their spirits, okay? So imagine, you know, this kind of hardcore back-breaking labor on a daily basis. You have to sleep in a jail cell. You probably don't get many hours of sleep a night. And the whole thing is, the more blocks you carry, you get more food. But the exchange rate is so ridiculously, you know, unfair. It's like 5 of these huge blocks that weigh, at the bare minimum, several hundred pounds. You gotta like, oh, you know, you get crushed underneath one of them. You carry 5 of those, you get 1 dongo, which is essentially nothing. It's nothing. It's not gonna fill you up pretty much at all. So if you want to get anything decent, like if you want to get a decent meal, a decent bowl of dongo of at least, you know, 30 or 40, you're going to have to lug dozens of these boulders every day, basically on an empty stomach. So it's just really unfair. So I can see this is why, this is how they're going to break their spirits, okay? You see the futility of it. It's like, it doesn't matter how many of these giant blocks I lug, I'm still only getting like maybe 2 dongo today maximum, you know? But you got to keep in mind, this is Luffy we're talking about here, right? So Luffy and Kidd, we cut over to them, and yeah, they're basically just using this I'll put you up here, Luffy. They're basically just using this opportunity as a training montage. So cue up like Eye of the Tiger from like Survivor or something from just cue up the Rocky soundtrack in general, and we cut over to Luffy and Kidd lugging these the super giant blocks, the ones that were like 12 prisoners in a cart have to lug up. They're probably like several tons each, and they're just lugging them, and they're running full sprint, and they're like, you know, get out of here. I'm gonna get to the ship first. Now I'm gonna get to the ship first. Move, get out of the way. I'm gonna run over all of you. Kidd is like, I'm gonna bulldoze you. Get out of my path. He's like, hearts on fire. And they throw it in the ship, and the ship is like, the captain of the ship is like, whoa, we're full. Jesus, calm down. And they're like, okay, well, bring another ship. Come on, we gotta go. And they run back to grab some more. And the guards are dumbfounded by this. They're like, how is, do they have the sea stone handcuffs still on? Did somebody take them off? It's like, no, they're still on. So it's like, with their power being drained, they still have this much energy to run around and lift up super heavy blocks and bring it over to a ship and then go back. And they've lugged 500 blocks each. So that's insanity. Well, I don't know. Did they say 500 each, or was it just how many rocks have they carried? We counted up to 500. So I don't know if that refers to 500 each, or it's like 250 for each. But either way, that's a lot of freaking blocks, right? So they go over to the ticket counter, to the lunch table, and they're like, okay, well, you know, they get like a whole mountain of dongo, and everyone's like kind of jealous looking around, and they're just like sitting there in their cells devouring these dongo, getting super fat. And the prisoners and the guards, they're like, oh well, we've never seen anybody get this fat in here. That's kind of whatever. The funny thing is, you think the prison guards at that point would just be like, well, you know, they did bring all of these blocks, so I guess we have to honor the rule and give them this many dongo. Like, no you don't! You're the ones in charge of the prison! You could just have a cutoff and be like, yeah, because don't you think that would be the way to break their spirits, if that was the whole goal of this? You know, like, oh, you lugged 500 blocks. That's pretty cool. Yeah, well, as you know, the rule is you get 1 piece of dongo for every 5 blocks you bring in. Except on Thursdays. Yeah, Thursdays, it turns out you only get 3, no matter how many you bring. Oh, and check, oh, it's Thursday! What? Who would have thought it? Okay, here you go. Plop, plop, plop. Here's your dinner. I mean, I'm a little bit confused here, is what I'm basically saying. Does Kaido want them working in the mines for the rest of their lives? Or does Kaido want them to be recruited into his crew as fighters? You'd think the latter would be the smart move, because they're Kidd and Luffy, and they're super strong pirates. But from this, it seems like, oh, we need to keep feeding them so we can keep them in the prison so they can keep on lugging blocks every day. It's like, all right, well, which is which? Which one do you want them to do, you know? But anyway, it doesn't really matter, because if you're trying to break their spirits, this isn't a great way of doing it. It's not working. A good way to break Luffy's spirit, I mean, eventually, just don't give him any food, you know? But, okay, whatever. So, we cut back to their cell, and they're devouring the piles of dongo, and they're arguing with each other about how many blocks they carried. Like, I carried more blocks than you. You know, freaking spiky head. And he's like, oh, you damn stupid monkey. Can't you count? I carry 2 more than you do. And they're just devouring their dongo, right? So, at this point, we get introduced to the vice warden, not the vice warden, but yeah, well, the deputy warden, it says here, who is also a headliner, Dobon. And Dobon is the wielder of the hippopotamus smile. And we knew this was coming. I figured the hippo smile was going to be coming eventually. We got this scene here where we could see all the shadowy images of the animals, and the hippo is there, and I'm thinking, that's pretty interesting. What I was not expecting was the design of him. This is an interesting one, even for Oda. Okay, so you know how like hippos have like the really large mouth, you know, like then they can open their mouth huge. The bottom part of the hippo's mouth is the lower part of Dobon's body, his legs. So the bottom of the hippo's jaw has Dobon's legs sticking out, and Dobon himself, as in his body, his arms, his head, are actually inside the hippo's mouth. So it goes legs, mouth, and then, you know, he's inside the mouth, and then that's the top part, and then whenever the hippo closes its mouth, he's completely covered, and you can't even hear what he's saying. So, and then there's an actual hippo that's the rest of his body. So, these smiles seem like a freaking lottery. You know what I mean? Like, you have one of these, like, Holden ended up getting the head of the lion in his stomach, but damn, this is freaking normal compared to Dobon. Dobon ate the hippo, and he's just like, oh god! An entire hippo just springs out from his lower regions. How does he go to the bathroom? God! He would have to pee in the hippo's mouth in this arrangement. But anyway, he shows up and he steps on the old man, Hyo, and he arrives and he's like, who ate all the damn dongo in the storehouse? And the other, guards go up to him and they're like, well, sir, there are these prisoners that lugged all these blocks here, and you know the rule, 5 blocks equals 1 dongo. And they're just like, you idiots, what am I supposed to eat now? So he's basically like doing the thing I'm saying. I was like, why did you even give it to them? We're prison guards. We don't have to listen to reason. Our boss is a giant dragon that gets drunk every single day. You can bend the rules a little bit, you know? So anyway, they bring out Kidd and Luffy. They're like, bring the prisoners that ate all my food here. So they haul them out. They're still wearing the sea stone. They're super fat now, both Kidd and Luffy. They're huge, right? Oh, and there was a funny, I forgot to mention this, but there was a funny scene earlier when they were eating the dongo in their cells. One of the prison guards was like, make sure to chew your food before you swallow it because they're just devouring the dongo. And the other prisoner guard is like, dude, really? Are you their mom? You telling them to chew their food? Go clean up the freaking spit in the other prison cell or whatever. You know, it's like, so that was a pretty funny scene. But anyway, yeah, Dobun brings them out, and he's like, oh, are you the ones that ate my food? And you know, while he's talking to them, while he's chewing them out, he's slowly, like, both Kidd and Luffy are slowly deflating as they're digesting all their food, because they have very, very weird bodies here. In the meantime, while this is going on, while Dobun is yelling at them, we also get to see some other prisoners that are, you know, witnessing all of this. One of which is the mysterious guy in the cell that we still don't know anything about. And also we have the absolute divine savior of this entire arc. It's not Buggy. No, it's not Buggy. It's or Usopp. It's somebody that's even higher in rank than God Usopp. It's the super god Wet Hair Karibo. No, that's a caribou. There we go. Karibo. He's back. Oh, the lights. So yeah, if anybody wants to know the story about Karibo and how he ended up at Wano, because it's been a while since we've seen him. The last time we've seen him in the actual context of the chapter was at Fishman Island, okay? So if you remember correctly, in Fishman Island, Karibo, he snuck in there with everybody. He tried to kidnap Shirahoshi. He actually learned about the whole thing with Uranos, Poseidon, and Pluton, just all the ancient weapons, and about Poseidon and what Shirahoshi really is. He learned all that from Robin, right? So, he eventually goes out to try to steal all the steal the treasure, and Peckhams comes out of nowhere, remember? And, you know, he tries to attack Peckhams. Peckhams turns into a turtle and just punches the crap out of Karibo, and he goes down, right? Well, he recovered from that, went back to try... This is after the Straw Hats have left Fishman Island, and he starts to try to kidnap mermaids again. Well, Jinbei's there. Jinbei beats the crap out of him. Much of this story involves Karibo getting the shit beat out of him, and then he brings him up to the surface to G5, leaves him there. G5 beats the crap out of him. They're about to torture him and just execute him at the stake. His other, you know, his brother, they arrive and they manage to save him, and he escapes on his own off into the ocean because he's a bastard. And then he arrives at one of the random islands of the new world that Kaido rules over, the same one that X-Drake arrived at with the strange mountains that are like, you know, they have the rings around them, they're like the striped mountains. He arrives there. We find out that Karibo bears a striking resemblance to a revolutionary named Gabaru, right? And Gabaru was kind of trying to like lead the revolution against Kaido at this island, right? And so, but he was defeated, he was killed apparently, you know, his revolution failed. But then Karibo appears, and Karibo looks just like him, so it's kind of like revitalizing the revolution, like, oh, our leader is back! And so Karibo has a brief stint as the head of this revolution and taking out one of Kaido's factories, before X-Drake shows up as a dinosaur, beats the crap out of him, and hauls his ass away to the prison mines. So yeah, some people were wondering what happened to him, if he was working with Kaido now, or if X-Drake did something with him, but no, X-Drake just beat the crap out of him because he was a revolutionary, and then just chucked him into Wano in the prison cell, where he is at right now. So he appears, and he's the same design he's always had, you know, he's still, he doesn't look like his spirit's been broken at all, he's just like the tongue, and he's like, Kishi, you know, he's just there. Or no, it's not. Kishi is Moria's. Karibo's is Ki-hee-hee-hee-hee. That was actually what the cover page was called. You know, Karibo's Ki-hee-hee-hee in the new world. But yeah, he's there. Now, he doesn't have any lines. He's just kind of in the background staring at everybody, but he is there. And if there is going to be a prison escape, it's now going to have to be, it has to be Luffy, Kidd, the guy in the cell, and it has to be Karibo. Because Karibo, I mean, he's an idiot. You gotta give me that much. He's an idiot, but he's got a Logia. He's got a Logia power that's pretty handy to just endlessly store anything you want into him. Maybe weapons. Maybe he has some guns in there that you can use. He's shackled, of course, with the Sea Prism, but that just negates, he just makes sure he can't use it. It's not like if he had something in there, they would all spill out when it's deactivated. He just probably just can't use his powers. So, yeah. Also, very impressive, and I think maybe something a little bit better than you, Luffy, is that Kidd was able to haul all those blocks one-handed. Because he's missing his other arm, because I think we saw Queen last chapter messing with it, you know, dismantling Kidd's arm. So yeah, Luffy, I mean, it's pretty impressive, but Kidd managed to do everything you did with one arm, so just saying. Luffy, you're going to have to tie one arm behind your back next time, is like to even it out, you know? So, anyway, Dobun continues to chastise them and just yell at them. He's like, you stole all my food. And they kind of try to play it as, like, coy as possible. They're just like, hey, well, you know, we have the sea stone handcuffs on, so our powers are drained. You know, the least you could give us is decent food or whatever. And so Dobun is just like, you know what, screw this. And he's like, oh, hungry hippos, freaking Luffy and Kidd, just devours them whole. And the prison guards are just like, oh, well, they're dead. That's the slaughter room right there. You know, I guess I'm assuming what happens is after the hippo consumes them, Dobun is in there and he just cuts them all up, you know. But the next scene is the hippo, like the air is coming out of the hippo's nostrils like, there's a hippo, that poor hippo, man. That hippo did nothing. The same thing with freaking Hold'em's lion. It's kind of innocent in this whole thing. It's really just a regular animal, you know? So the hippo is just like, and this, and then the hippo just drops dead, and then Luffy and Kidd walk out, and they have Old Man Hyo in their arms, and Luffy tries to do his like, what happened to the giant dead hippo? I didn't do anything. I don't know what the hell just happened. I think that hippo just dropped dead. And so they just try to walk away and not even being so nonchalant about it. And the other prisoners are praising Luffy and Kidd. They're like, they are the prisoners of hope. They are our stars, you know, and they're like all cheering. So yeah, I think a little bit of dissension is beginning now in the prison, where Luffy and Kidd are kind of breaking the whole system, where even restrained with Sea Prism Stone, because all that does is restrict their Devil Fruit powers. Could they still use Haki? I'm imagining they probably could, and also we've seen their Freak Show strong anyways, so if Luffy and Kidd probably really wanted to, I mean, that Dobun guy was just like the vice warden or the vice jailer, so there's probably still at least one more person in the prison mine that's like stronger than him, but they took out that dude no problems at all. So anybody else that comes close to them, I think they're just using this more as an opportunity to train, because from what we've seen here, if Kidd and Luffy really wanted to, they could just pick up those giant blocks, walk over to the gate or whatever, that's like the gate they came in, and just BAM! And just throw the blocks through and just run through and escape. You know, and they could run super fast with giant, you know, tons of bricks on them, so think they could get away no problem, really. I mean, they're on top of a mountain, but they'll figure something out, you know? So, yeah, it's interesting. But in this chapter, yeah, it was more about just setting up the rebellion, what's going on in the different sections of Wano, what Sanji's up to, what Usopp's up to, what Nami's up to, you know, gathering information, selling weapons, making soba, and then we cut to Luffy and Kidd breaking the whole system there. So, yeah, their spirits are not going to get broken, so that's not going to go down there. Maybe the warden is probably going to hear about this, the head of these prisons, who's also a Smile user most likely, and they're going to show up, and then we might get a battle between them, and then they all escape, you know, Luffy, and hey, maybe not just Luffy, Kidd, the mysterious guy, and Karibo. Maybe they start a straight up riot and everybody escapes, and then they have like the kind of the same thing with Impel Down, like some of the prisoners are willing to fight alongside the Kozuki's cause. So there you go. Yeah, but Dobun was he was an interesting character design. I think that's definitely the highlight of this chapter. You know, Fat Kidd and Fat Luffy are also kind of up there. Kind of shows that Kidd is kind of in the same ballpark of Luffy in terms of like the weird-ass bodies they have and stuff. That's a highlight, but Dobun's design with the giant hippo, it was pretty creepy but interesting at the same time there. So anyway, yeah, I hope to see what's going to come from Karibo, who the mysterious dude is, who the shadowy dude is, who the, Kawamatsu, easily, the mysterious Jack the Ripper of Wano. We're going to get a little bit more elaboration on that. Next chapter, I definitely want to see Brook and seeing what he's doing in the cemetery. That would be pretty creepy. So, yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Tekking101, Law Tekking101, signing out. Later, everybody.